everybody. I am Carey Ross, a senior consultant here with Rizing in our managed services area. Super glad to be here today to talk about the analytics with the H1 2021 SAP SuccessFactors release, everything analytics and reporting related. I'm going to be joined today by our newest consultant for reporting and analytics within our team here, Jennifer Hamilton. Jennifer, just to say again, I am super excited, one, to even have you here at Rizing, but two, for you to join here today and talk about the fun stuff we have coming out.
Yeah, thank you. It is exciting to be here this is my first release and my first live. So really excited to get this going and discuss the amount of release updates we have.
Yeah. It'll be a good too. You know, some of the clients that'll be watching might not know your name yet or have seen you. So kind of introduction to the world right now.
Really?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on. We have a few things, you know, lots of story report stuff, some general report center navigation things where some of that is coming into play. I think some of the main places and maybe good place to start is talking about some of the new navigation.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to hear that a majority of the calibration, succession, and compensation reports are going to be available to download into My Jobs.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the last things almost for getting away from that classic view of reporting. So as we've all heard for a few years, you know, that's going away. It's no longer supported by SuccessFactors. And that's been a question I've had from many people that use those comp variable pay type reports. And when they download them, it would still go to that classic view and scheduled reports. And that's nice. Now they'll go into the report center where you look at your view schedules and your My Job. So really just all the new interface. That's good.
Yeah, I know they've been working on that for a really long time, and it could be a little confusing trying to explain to new clients or new users on, no, you have to go grab that, you know, in Classic.
Right. Well, it's hard to say don't permission classic view because it's not, you know, supported, but yet you have to have it for those. So that'll go away, that confusion.
I think that includes pixel perfect talent cards as well, right?
Yes, it does. So for those clients using the pixel perfect talent cards, those also will move over to the My Jobs area when you do a batch print for download.
Yeah, that's cool. That flows much better. And I'm excited for the transition to fully support, you know, Report Center down the road.
Yeah, that's going to be good. A few other things, you know, for those clients out there using workforce analytics, there's a couple cool new enhancements there that I think are great.
Yeah, I think they have, about two of them. One around those custom metrics. I guess, you know, it was an enhancement brought on by voters.
Yeah.
So the clients can go online and vote for specific enhancements, and if it gets enough votes, then SuccessFactors will work on bringing that forward. And the latest one around WFA is that you can now place the custom metrics that you create, you can put them within existing categories and subcategories.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. One, to point out that when you put something in those, you know, the influence tool and make a request, they really do watch those. So if you ever think, I have an idea, but I'm not sure, put it in, because if you have the idea, somebody else probably does too.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. So with the custom metrics, previously they just showed up like under custom metrics. And if I'm a user that didn't create it, I might not realize what it's there for, what I'm looking for in that custom metrics category or in the measures. And so that's really good that you can now kind of nest them underneath the other measures and metrics there so that it is a little bit more visible to other users who might not be creating the custom metrics, but use them, and just easier to find and get more utilization out of them. The other thing with WFA that I think is really cool, if you're using the WFA on HANA, so it has to be the HANA, not the traditional version of WFA, you can now prioritize internal movements. So if you have a user that has multiple movements, multiple events within a day, you can prioritize which movement you would want to show up. So it's not just the last one.
Yes.
So you could say, I'd rather see if it's based on promotions or whatever. That can be done within the admin area where you can do the configuration of WFA on HANA. Not available in the traditional, so that's really important to point out. So if somebody is trying to look for that, just available in the HANA version.
Yeah, I think that's a great improvement. I know where you can constantly, it just allows us to be able to really customize
Right.
something based on the actual last event.
Well, and just to see the data that is most relevant to what I need to see. So, because if you have multiple movements in a day, which happens, then I can see what is important to me from that workforce analytics side. So that's great.
For sure.
But I think the big things in this release,
yes,
and I anticipate coming forward, are stories, right? People
stories?
analytics, story reports. From all the clients that we talk to, I know there's a lot of people still working to get that enabled, and they're not actually enabled and using it yet, because there are some prerequisites involved to get there. Mainly the IAS, Identity Authentication Service. Talked about this a little bit yesterday with the learning, because the learning data is now going to be available in story reports.
That's huge.
It is huge.
I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, you as a learning administrator before, right? That would be good to have that kind of data.
I've been waiting years for that.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to be available yet just to join with other tables yet, but the big thing is it's there, and I anticipate that'll come, eventually. Some big things, if you're not using people stories, the people analytics, the story reports yet, get a plan around it, because that is the newest tool. That is where updates are going to be made. That's where we're going to see more and more enhancements in all of these releases. But let's talk about which ones are here this release.
Yeah, I think a big one that kind of makes it, again, more user-friendly, easier for the client, is the fact that the user info fields are going to be automatically enabled.
That's great.
Yeah, it was something that users would go in and wonder, where is this? I enabled stories. Why can't I find the user information? And it would just include an additional step that you would have to remember, and you would think that it would have been something that would be automatic, and now it is. So
it's great too, because those user info fields, you create a new user info field, and then you go to build a report. It's like, where is it? You'd have to identify it as reportable. So that's great that they're going to automatically be there. Even they've made it so much simpler, even over the years anyway. Way back in the day when we'd have to make it reportable through XML, and you had to reach out to a partner, but now you can do that through business configuration, and great that they're just going to be reportable automatically in those story reports. Some other things. What about the fact that we can delete queries that we're not using anymore?
Yes, I have so many. Excuse me, I have so many I need to delete. It just became overwhelming, because to you are constantly building and you realize, oh, maybe this is something, this would be a better report, and you can delete, the other query. But now you can go in and clean up your list of queries, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, as long as it's not used in one of the widgets, you can delete it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's good. Just kind of clean things up, keep it a little bit more organized.
Yes, for sure. I'm sure a lot of people are going to go in there next week, start deleting some old queries.
Yeah. How about our biggest complaint? Not enough columns in a
Oh my
story report,
gosh.
in a query.
Huge one. I recently had a ticket opened for this as well.
Yeah.
He was at her limit of 30 and she just needed 3 more columns, and it's like, sorry,
Yeah.
are there any 3 ones that you could maybe delete? And that limitation just, is that limitation just sucks. And now we have 120 columns that you can add to a story query. So,
More data, more data, more data.
oh
That's
my,
awesome. That hopefully will help. I would say that's probably been one of the the biggest, not complaints, but limitations
for sure.
that people ask about. So that's really good there. We also have some UI design changes with the toolbar. I'm going to look a little bit different, make it a little bit easier to go between view and edit mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first started with stories, that was a little confusing too. I felt like I was always searching on where to go. And they've definitely set it up in a way to where it's user friendly, and
Right.
you don't have to think where the flow is on how to edit, where to save. It's all on the same ribbon now. So
Right.
that's another great improvement, and I'm sure going forward throughout the next, releases throughout the next few years or a couple years, all of the majority of the updates are most likely going to be around stories, because it's a
Oh, yeah.
continuous ways to improve stories. um, there's way more functionality with that new tool, so I'm sure the
Right.
majority of updates are going to be around stories.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and then the other big one, obviously, you had mentioned it earlier, was that the LMS data is going to be able to be merged with other modules, and that'll hopefully come through later this year. I heard it's just going to go through a phase though, so we can't expect it all at one time.
Right.
So yeah, that's a very big move for SuccessFactors, because
Yeah.
a lot of companies out there have validated systems where, that data is associated to, multiple connectors, and a lot more data. So
Well,
everybody
and
wants the data.
that's a good point about validated systems, because if you're on a validated LMS, that won't actually be available for you yet. Makes sense. There's more that has to be there security wise to make sure that that's all good. But you and I mean, just talking about learning reports in general, you've got your standard learning reports out of the LMS admin side. They're not easy to customize. You have to use it with the external tool, the report designer, using SQL. You and I have worked in that, for a lot, many times over the years. There's also then you can get data in a report canvas in the report center, and you can join your learning data there, which is great. I feel there's a few things that have a little bit of limitation
Yes.
on some of the data that can pull over, but it's a great way for a client to be able to do some of that customization on their own. But so this is just another step in that. I mean, learning is, was my original module many years ago, and so that's always exciting to me when I see new stuff, specifically about that too.
Agreed. I agree. And going forward with that, um, I'm sure you're familiar with the content store. So
Yes.
SuccessFactors is, they have supplied us with a variety of different story templates from the content store. And I'm sure when learning comes on and more data is available, they'll create templates for that. But they've also created a new template around the human capital disclosure.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think that's a pretty fancy template, and it's going to help with companies being able to comply with the new regulation that's required by
Yeah.
by the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission. So it's kind of helping take the thinking out of it, and you download or import this template, and I think that'll be a huge game changer too
I
for
think so
businesses.
too. I love the idea of the content store. If you think about Employee Central, and previously, there are the Employee Central standard reports that would have to be downloaded from, the help.sap.com, imported into the system. This just makes it an easier place to find them. One place right there in the content store. Download what you need. One thing to point out, doesn't mean that they will work for everybody, because these are general, right? They're a template. If you're not using a field that might be in there, there might be some little tweaks and changes that the client needs to make to it, but it's a great place to start, especially when they're learning story reports.
For sure.
You're not sure exactly where to start. Well, download a template that's, just about your head count or something, and start there and see how it's built and be able to see kind of the flow between it. I think
Yeah,
it's
for
great.
inspiration, right? Like it's kind of sometimes I need help. You need help getting the hamster rolling and help
Yeah,
you get ideas of, because sometimes you're so set on the data or on the raw data, which is really where you should start. But then to get the visual, it would be it's super helpful to have those templates and get
yeah,
an idea of what it should look like. So it looks
right.
we have a question in the chat.
Yeah, I see that. We have a question from our friend Steve, which I think this is a great topic to talk about too. Has SAP come up with any simplifications to getting the IAS function going? I don't know that it's necessarily simplifications, but there is a quick guide to enabling people analytics out as a KBA. And we can grab that and maybe put it somewhere in the link after we're done here. That has lots of great information out there. Everything technically can be handled on your side with some upgrades that have to happen. The IAS piece is probably the biggest part that's kind of getting some people with how does it need to go. We have many conversations. People open tickets. We have lots of conversations with clients about what steps do I need to do? How is this going to affect me? Because it's not exactly the same for every client. There's different things to keep in mind. IAS itself, to run the initiate upgrade in the upgrade center, super easy. All you do, click on it, put in, you have to have your SID associated with that client. So like, we can't do it for you. And then it will run and it creates those IAS and the IPS tenants. After that, you will get an email that shows, here's your login. Go ahead and log into your tenant. And there is some setup that has to be done between there to get the users to sync from your platform side into IAS. Not too difficult. There's tons of documentation out there, and we're here available to help. We can help with that. We have Jennifer and I, we have some integrations people. The biggest thing to keep in mind is if you're using SSO.
Yeah.
If you are using SSO, then you're going to need to get your IT involved your SSO team, because you're going to move SSO basically from the back-end provisioning to IAS, which I think is great when we think about it, because what it's doing is taking more and more and putting it on the front end for the client without having to come, you have a new SSO certificate. You don't have to open a ticket to say, hey, can you, paste this certificate into provisioning for me? You'll have control of that. So I think that that's a great part of it, but you just have a little bit more to think about and plan out if you do have that. So Steve, I don't know if the answer is that there's really any simplifications just yet, but obviously here at Rizing, we will try to do anything we can to make it a little bit more simple for you and help put that plan in place. I see you are saying that, yes, you do have SSO. So definitely a plan that we would want to put in place, have a project around it, because obviously when you move it into production, we're moving live. We need to have a plan that, for this downtime to move things over to make sure your users are aware.
So Carey, would you suggest for those users that are not single sign-on currently to really start thinking about moving in that direction?
I would say for everybody, single sign-on or not, I would, in my opinion, get a plan now. Start thinking about it now. Because IAS is going to be there, and it's going to be needed for more and more things we're already seeing. For people analytics, for external users of learning, we talked about yesterday. If you use learning and you're using external users, IAS is going to be required by next year. So, in my opinion, get a plan around it now. Start thinking about it. Doesn't mean we're, turning it on next week, but let's get a plan around it. Talk to us, have an hour conversation about what do I need to think about? What are my next steps? Because at some point, it's probably going to be required. And
Right.
Why wait until you're forced to do it?
Exactly. Why wait until you're forced? And you don't want to do both of them, right? If we we know stories is going to be the thing of the future. I mean, they are the thing of the future with SuccessFactors, and that is where we're
Right.
moving. We're going to be, definitely phasing out table reports, and at some point they are talking about phasing out Canvas reports many years down the road. But we know the time flies by, so I really encourage businesses to look into SSO, get that off the table, and then definitely sync over to IAS. So when these updates and functionalities come through, you're set and you're not stressed out, trying to get in with the cool kids
Yeah.
on all the new functions. So yeah, don't overwhelm yourself with multiple projects all at one time. Like Carey said, set up that plan on how to integrate SSO, and then say 6 months from now, uh, let's integrate, IAS, and from there, any other enhancements should hopefully be pretty easy to enable and move forward
Right.
with.
I feel like too that IAS just kind of opens the door for so much more integration options, and hopefully from even and I'm just totally saying from my hope, hopefully for other types of integrations with other SAP products. I just feel like it opens that up,
Yep.
which should be great. I lost my thought there of something else I was going to say
Around
about IAS. Yeah, it was about IAS. There's so much around it. But
there is.
like I said, I mean, if you have questions about it and even just want to kind of think, what should I do? We're happy to have that quick conversation with you to at least help start thinking about it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. as far as reporting goes, and how you say, story reports are the thing of the future. It is said that will replace table and Canvas reports at some point. Don't freak out right now.
Right.
But at some point, we're talking 2-3 years down the road, that will be the tool for reporting. And so don't wait until the last minute, until you have to upgrade. Let's do it ahead of time and get you using the tool and just get up to speed on it. Because honestly, like we've already said, I think that future releases, we're going to hear a lot of story report stuff.
Yes. Yes. I mean, just this release, stories is stories even a year old yet? I think it's
Not yet.
probably, yeah,
Maybe about a year.
I think we're around the birthday.
Yeah.
And so just this release, we have, 6 or so
Yeah, I think
updates
so.
around stories.
Out
Or
of
maybe,
13,
yeah,
or it might be
maybe,
8 out of
yeah,
13 were around
right.
stories.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just a couple WFA and a couple report center, and then
Right.
everything else is stories.
Yeah. One thing I do know, and maybe this kind of helps Steve a little bit, is they did make an enhancement to the upgrade to People Analytics. This is after you do the IAS stuff. There's then a final upgrade to People Analytics, stories in People Analytics. And that upgrade itself is now enhanced to where if by chance it fails, you no longer have to open a ticket with SuccessFactors to say, hey, it's failed, why? Do some troubleshooting. And it will automatically send a notification to the back-end team at SuccessFactors to where then they can resolve the issue. And the admin that ran that upgrade will then get an automatic email notification to say, hey, that issue's been resolved. You can go back and run that. So I guess that's kind of a simplification there on part of that. Not necessarily around IAS, but around the overall People Analytics update.
Yeah, that's right. We almost forgot about that one. Yeah, I definitely think that one's helpful. It kind of releases, removes the stress from you thinking, oh no, now what? Like that rolls over to SuccessFactors. They'll take care of the troubleshooting and get back to you. So
Right.
definitely, that is a simplification, Steve, don't you think?
Right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. If nothing else comes in, I think we can probably try to wrap up. I will remind people there's one more LinkedIn Live for our talent group on talent, but it's at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight because it's over in our APAC region. But if you're awake at 11 p.m. and you're just thinking, hey, I need to listen to something, or you want to hear more about talent, go ahead and join in with that group. They'd love to have you there. But otherwise, we're 2 weeks out to this release in prod. Start taking a look at it in preview, and we're here to help you with what we can.
Sounds good. Thanks, Carey.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll chat soon.
All right.
All right.